5 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. Today is Monday, November 3rd, 2025, and I'm Newton to represent you. Stories to follow with this evening. Former House Speaker Councillor Fonate Kofa says he resigned as Speaker due to non-cooperation for President Joseph Boakai and the retired executive branch. Founder of Free Liberia Movement and Universal Human Rights International describes U.S. government's non-immigrant visa validity extension as a polite insult to injury. Reverend Tolly Kura accuses the U.S. and Western nations of deploying apartheid systems and systematic exclusion of black people. Solidarity and Trust for New Day alleges officers of the Liberal Drug Enforcement Agency of selling confiscated illegal substances. Away from Liberia, U.S. President Donald Trump tells military to prepare for action against Islamic militants in Nigeria. Tanzania President Samia Suluhu Hassan has been sworn in for the second term amid tight security following an election marked by violent protests and rejected by the opposition as a sham. These plus the news bulletin, our international developments are all packaged. We are taking a very short break now. At this juncture, we join Sam Andrews with the news bulletin.
Former House Speaker, Councillor Fonate Kofa, has said he resigned the speakership due to the executive involvement and influence of members of the House of Representatives through financial and political means. The Grand Crew County District 2 lawmaker spoke on OKF Monday, accused the executive of making the House of Representatives ungovernable under his stewardship. According to him, he further realized during the impasse at the House that President Joseph Boakai was unwilling to cooperate with him as Speaker, noting that the President preferred a Speaker who could dance to the drumbeat of the presidency. The former Speaker, who'd been on several national issues recently, explained that his resignation was intended to preserve the integrity and dignity of the House of Representatives, as well as the overall governance system of Liberia. He re-emphasized his position to project the Aranto Production Sharing Agreement bill, describing it as a 419 deal designed to exploit Liberians and deprive the country of much-needed revenue. Councillor Fonate Kofa also vowed to rally members of the House of Representatives to ensure that President Boakai proposed legislation is rejected. The founder of Free Liberia Movement and Universal Human Rights International, Reverend Tolly Kura, has criticized the United States government's recent decision to extend non-immigrant visa validity for Liberians. Recently, the Liberian government announced that the United States government extended from 1 to 3 years non-immigrant visa validity for Liberian travelers, something Reverend Kura calls a polite insult to injury. According to him, the move is a deeper and more systemic injustice in U.S. immigration policy toward Africans. In an interview with King's News from the USA, Reverend Kura, a Liberian-born pastor and longtime advocate for human rights and immigration reforms, accused the United States and its Western allies of maintaining a colonial apartheid system that privileged citizens of non-white majority countries while systemically excluding Black and indigenous people. He challenged what he called the myth of Liberia's founding by free slaves, asserting that the West African country was established by the United States government, not by independent freedom. According to Pastor Kura, Liberia's 1824 constitution, drafted in Washington, D.C., explicitly tied the new colony to the United States, declaring that all settlers from America will enjoy the same rights as U.S. citizens. A prominent Liberian citizen and lead campaigner of Solidarity for Trust for a New Day, fellow Kofa has accused the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency of engaging in illegal sale of confiscated narcotics. Speaking over the weekend at the official launch of Stand, Lead, or Leave December 17 protest in Congo Town, Kofa alleged that she received credible information linking some LDEA authorities to clandestine deals, including the resale of seized drugs to other dealers. According to her, such practice has contributed to the growing proliferation of illicit substances across Maserati County and other parts of the country. Manakofa also criticized President Boakai for what she described as poor governance and insensitivity to the plight of ordinary Liberians. She claimed that the Boakai government policy has worsened economic hardship and deepened poverty amongst the people. The Solidarity and Trust for New Day lead campaigned for the call on Liberians to turn out in large numbers for the December 17 protest, which aims to demand accountability and improve leadership from the government. Unity Party Chairman Reverend Luther Tape on Sunday called for a fundamental shift in Liberia's political culture, urging leaders to abandon self-interest and embrace a renewed spirit of public service. Speaking to journalists at his church on Robertsfield Highway, Reverend Tape reflected on his participation in what he described as the African Union of Democracy, a gathering of representatives from 34 countries, including South Africa and Tunisia. According to the ruling Unity Party chairman, the conference was focused on strengthening democratic governance and accountability across Africa. He noted that it is time for government to move away from self-interest politics and serve the people's interest. The Unity Party chairman emphasized that Liberia's progress depends on leaders who take decisive actions to improve citizen lives rather than offering what he calls false hope. Liberia DJs Association President Alfonso Morris, popularly known as DJ Mo, has expressed strong disappointment in Representative Bernard Blue Benson, Emmanuel Down, and several others for what he described as abandonment of DJs across the country. According to Morris, it is frustrating to see Representatives Emmanuel Down and Bernard Benson, affectionately called DJ Blue, refusing to help upcoming DJs improve their talents despite their previous affiliation with the association before being elected as lawmakers. The Liberia DJs Association president said although both lawmakers are former disc jockeys, their alleged refusal to support young talents in the country or attend the association event as a means of motivation for upcoming DJs. Morris comments in direct reaction to claims of financial support by Representative DJ Blue and Emmanuel Down toward the association over the years. Bomi County Senator Prince Moore has defended government officials against what many describe as mayonnaise. Senator Moore claimed the government is more focused on spending on developmental initiatives that will benefit the people rather than giving individual handouts. He accused the WIA's government of looting state resources and spending loosely on loyalists. Several citizens have criticized Senator Prince Moore's justification of meanness, terming it as insane, baseless, and unjust. ECOWAS Ambassador to Liberia, Josephine Nkrumah, is encouraging custom officers of member states of the West African Regional Organization to implement the protocol giving free trade access to traders in the region. She said in order to transform the West African region, there is a need for custom officers of member states to accept records of inspection conducted by each other so as to reduce the time and funds in moving goods in the region. According to her, traders in the West African region will continue to face challenges of double inspection once the custom officers of member states fully inspect any goods being transported by traders. Ambassador Josephine Nkrumah made the assertion when she delivered the keynote speech at the end of a two-day training of custom officers in Guinea, Ivory Coast, and Liberia in Monrovia over the weekend. The chief patron of the original Countrymen movement has vowed not to accept what media replica of the incident in which he was barred from participating in any contest in 2029. In 2023, Thomas Nimlem was barred by the Supreme Court from contesting the legislative elections on ground he was not a resident of District 11, Montserrat County, where he intended to contest the representative seat. Speaking during the 2025 National Convention of the organized Original Countrymen Movement in Kakata, Magibi County during the weekend, Thomas Nimlem said, "No one should take the OMC for granted." A special memorial committee has been set up to memorialize and hold feast in honor of the late Senator of Nema County, Prince Johnson, on November 28th. The chairman of the committee, Von Gley, disclosed that the memorialization of Senator Johnson is being organized by Vice President Jeremiah Cohn in collaboration with family of the late senator. Addressing a press conference in Saniquale, Nema County at the weekend, Mr. Gley explained that on November 27, the people of Nema County will converge at their various places to be selected for the laying of wreaths in honor of the late senator. Gley added that prior to November 28th, each of the 40 chiefdoms will be given one cow, 500 United States dollars, and 20 bags of rice for the feast, since everybody cannot get to Saniquale. And the youth wing of the Alternative National Congress has recommended a deep-seated overhaul of the judiciary in order to minimize executive influence. ANC Youth Chairman Aliyu Kiadi said the judiciary needs to have an all-independent oversight and all appointments be made on merit. The ANC Youth Chairman also proposed the opening of the procurement process in the government, noting that the state is losing so much on illicit transactions. He made the comments during a press conference held at the headquarters of the ANC over the weekend. The House of Representatives Chair on Gender Equality, Child Development and Social Services, Representative Mema Briggs Menza, on behalf of the Joint Legislative Committee on Gender Equity, Child Development and Social Services, Judiciary, Internal Affairs, and Health, lauded participants of the just ended two-day expert and legislative consultation on the draft bill to ban harmful cultural practices in Liberia. The Bond County lawmaker said the committee is expected to have a press conference next Tuesday, informing the public about the status of the bill. It can be recalled President Boakai submitted an act to the national legislature to ratify and ban harmful cultural practices in Liberia.
Sam Andrews with the news bulletin. The news bulletin is a regular feature here on King's Newsroom. What if you just joining us? A reminder, listening to King's Newsroom, 45 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. Today is Monday, November 3rd, 2025, and I'm Newton Tokwa presenting. Stories will follow in this evening. Former House Speaker, Councillor Funati Kofa, says he resigned as Speaker due to non-cooperation from President Joseph Walker and the entire executive branch of government. Founder of Free Liberia Movement and Universal Human Rights International describes U.S. government's non-immigrant visa validated extension as a polite insult to injury, Reverend Tolly Crowd accuses the U.S. government and Western nations of deploying apartheid systems and systematic exclusion of black people. Solidarity and trust for newly elected officers of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency of selling confiscated illegal substances. Away from Liberia, U.S. President Donald Trump tells military to prepare for action against Islamic militants in Nigeria. Tanzania President Samia Suluhu Hassan has been sworn in for the second term amid tight security following an election marked by violent protests and rejected by the opposition as a sham. We are taking another short break. When we come back, we bring you the voices of the newsmakers. On our first development here this evening, former House Speaker Councillor Funade Kofa said he resigned the speakership due to the executive involvement and influence of members of the House of Representatives through financial and political means. The Grand Creek County District 2 lawmaker who spoke with OKFN Monday accused the executive of making the House of Representatives ungovernable under his stewardship. According to him, he further realized during the impasse at the House of Representatives that President Joseph Walker was unwilling to cooperate with him as Speaker, noting that the president preferred a Speaker who could dance to the drumbeat of the presidency.
Clarence, you have to understand, I don't know if it's the issue of me going wrong. As the current speaker said, the regime was not prepared to work with someone in the opposition. They simply was not prepared. The speaker has said that over and over, that they simply were not prepared to do that. And so they use every muscle they can, especially the executive, to make sure that the place was ungovernable, forcing me to make a decision to we continue this battle or for the sake of the country. I look at it like a Solomon scenario, okay? One group come and say, split the baby in half. We don't care. I got to look at it and say, this baby got to survive. The integrity of the house, the sanctity of the place, the integrity of the government structure was very important. And so I'll step aside from that. When the Supreme Court ruled that Funade Kofa is the legitimate speaker, and the executive comes and says, we'll still work with the majority bloc, then at that point, I felt we were creating or preparing for a confrontation that was unnecessary. Well, Clarence, any statement I made was based on the information I had at the time. But I really don't want to litigate this issue.
The former speaker, who been on several national issues, recently explained that the resignation was intended to preserve the integrity and dignity of the House of Representatives, as well as the overall governance system of the country.
The $1.25 million that Oranto going to pay upfront, okay, whenever they flip or they start production and they owe Liberia, let's assume $10 million, they get to deduct if they sold to somebody else because they don't have the capacity. Oranto will have no choice but to go sell it to ExxonMobil or one of the big companies. No, we're not debating. They went to committee. I have informed the committee, and then I gradually, as I read, I inform the public as to what I'm seeing in the agreement. Every investor, right? When you come to make an investment somewhere, you got to feel it in your pocket. Okay, investment is risk, right? But if I come to you, look, this Oranto agreement, I think Liberia should give it to me. I'm a Liberian. I'm entitled, to our resources. I can raise $1.2 million or $3 million or $5 million, and I get it back when I flip it and make $200 million. Any Liberian can do this. We don't need Oranto to do it under the arrangement that they have given, because all the money you spend upfront, you get it back. Okay, so the way the agreement is structured, you have 100%. That's the block, right? 85% goes to the contractor. 10% goes to NOCA, 5% citizen participation. Then the agreement says NOCA will hold that 5% for Liberians. Okay, the citizen participation, NOCA will hold that 5%. So that's 15 NOCA holding. It will lapse if after the fine or in 180 days, NOCA does not exercise the right to claim that percentage. What is bad about this is then it goes down at the end of the day. Right? Even though we have this citizen participation, Section 35 says, apart from the state, the authority, and the contractor, no person shall have rights under this contract. NOCA don't have rights. Citizens don't have rights. If it's about to lapse and citizens as beneficiary cannot file a lawsuit or cannot impose their rights on it, then what is it? It's nothing. So it's an empty gesture. It's a provision that needs to be reviewed and examined.
His former House Speaker, Councillor Fonatiko Fade speaking. The founder of the Free Liberia Movement and Universal Human Rights International, Reverend Tolly Kura, has sharply criticized the United States government's recent decision to extend non-immigrant visa validity for Liberian citizens. Recently, the Liberian government announced that the U.S. government has extended for 1 to 3 years non-immigrant visa validity for Liberian travelers, something Reverend Kura calls a polite insult to injury. According to him, the move is a deeper and more systematic injustice in U.S. immigration policy toward Africans.
In 2025, citizens of 43 countries worldwide enjoy free visa travel to the United States of America, but not a single African nation is on the list. Not even Liberia, a country secretly funded, founded, and governed by the U.S. government for over 200 years. That exclusion is no accident. It is the result of a global system of racial injustice and oppression built by slave masters and colonizers and still upheld by today's immigration, trade, and foreign policy. While citizens of white majority nations enjoy mutual access and global mobility, Black and indigenous peoples are locked out, detained, or left to drown in the Mediterranean Sea. Today, British citizens travel visa-free to 186 countries. In return, the British do not welcome all the citizens of countries British citizens enter without visa. Why? Even in Africa, where British colonized 36 countries, nations like Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria still welcome British travelers visa-free, while their own citizens face denial, delay, and humiliation at British borders. France and the United States practice the same double standard. They reap the privileges of empire, while those they colonize are criminalized for seeking opportunities. What's the deal with Liberia? It's time to expose the truth. Liberia was not founded by free slaves. It was built by the U.S. government under the leadership of slave masters like George Washington, President James Monroe, using public funds to deport free Black American citizens who had already won their freedom in places like Massachusetts. Under the 1780 state constitution, 1824, Liberia's constitution drafted in Washington, D.C., declared, quote, all persons born in Liberia and all settlers from the United States shall enjoy the same rights as U.S. citizens. Liberia is a jurisdiction of the United States government. In 2025, Liberia still answers to Washington. Its top officials hold United States passport, but 80% of Liberians are denied U.S. visas, losing millions of dollars in non-refundable fees, worse than visa refusal rates for Afghanistan, which is 48%. 80% rejection for Liberia, 48% rejection for Afghanistan, 53% rejection for Iran, 38% rejection for Russia. This is not foreign policy. This is a colonial apartheid. This is colonial apartheid, a regime rooted in the 1790 Naturalization Act passed by the United States Congress, which defined U.S. citizenship as a privilege.
He is the founder of Free Liberia Movement and Universal Human Rights International, Reverend Tolly Kura. They're speaking. A prominent Liberian citizen and lead campaigner of the Solidarity and Trust for a New Day, Madam Philip Kofa, has accused the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency of engaging in illegal sale of confiscated narcotics substances. Speaking over the weekend during the official launch of Stan's Lead or Leave December 17 protest campaign in Congo Town, Kofa alleged that she received credible information linking some LDE authorities to clandestine dealings, including the resale of seized drugs to other dealers.
I'm speaking here today because a whole lot of mothers cannot speak for themselves because they can no longer afford to take their kids to school. The school they were in before, they have to take them to community school because no money to pay school fees. And there is no regulation, and Mr. Barker is not looking at that, but he is here flying private jet that he wants to talk about, that no one should be able to fly private jet as a president. And Mr. Barker is flying private jet, living luxurious life. He is OOH. I blame you, Liberians, to some extent because We gave him the power to do that in his very old age. We gave Mr. Bwaka his retirement job, and we gave him a job because Liberian people thought that he was going to deliver. Mr. Bwaka has not delivered anything to the Liberian people. If you don't know it, look at the youth in the street. Look at the children, the boys who should be future leaders of tomorrow. They cannot even live in their homes anymore because of the proliferation of drugs. Drug too much on the market. I was speaking with one judge and added, he told me, sister, those who are bringing the drugs in the country, they say the business is easy for them now because they can only buy it from the DEA people. They're not going to travel. So all the drugs they are getting, the drugs that they are seizing, they are selling it here. Liberians, the drugs that the DEA are seizing on a daily basis, I can assure you that they are selling it again. They are reselling it. Don't be surprised. America, I told me say, oh, but business all right now because we're going to travel to what's and whatever. The drugs right here. They put when they seize it from the port, they can sell it back to us. Liberians do not be deceived. Mr. Bwaka has not come to rescue you. He came to rescue himself, and he's being rescued at the expense of the Liberian people. December 17th is the time for us to come out. Liberian women, now is the time. Mr. Bwaka, I can assure you, we are ready. We will stand up to you, Mr. Bwaka. Enough. You have to lead or you leave.
A permanent Liberian citizen, lead campaigner of the Solidarity and Trust for Needy Fellow co-founder speaking. The House of Representatives Chair on Gender Equality, Child Development and Social Services, Representative Moman Brice Mensah, on behalf of the Joint Legislative Committee on Gender Equality, Child Development and Social Services, Judiciary, Internal Affairs, and Health, lauded participants of the just ended two-day spread and legislative consultation on the draft bill to ban harmful cultural practices in Liberia. The Bon County lawmaker said the committee is expected to have a press conference next Tuesday, informing the public about the status of the bill.
This expert consultative meeting, we also want to say thank you to the ministries that made themselves available to tell how much they are in support of this bill, and also how they all want to help for every one of us to collaborate. I always say this is a very sensitive bill. We all need to be one way or the other, test all of the strength because we don't work for ourselves, we work for the people, and the people involvement is very important. Thanks to the full working committees and also the women legislative caucus, the health committee, judiciary, and then internal affairs and gender, which happen to be all of our colleagues that are coming support on this bill to say we want to work along with you people. We say thank you to members of the focus state, our press bureau, our secretary in the House of Representatives. They are also very supportive in this process. We say thank you to our partners, the Action Aid, UN Women, we have Wongoso, we have the team for the traditional people, Masita and our team, and the rest of the people that are willing to work with us to make this come to the reality. What I was saying this morning, we are here on the last day. We're going to be looking at what we have had as a bill. And we're asking the secretariat to make sure that Tuesday we have a press conference as a working team to inform the public that we are given up to the 6th, which is 2 weeks for plenary to look at the bill and go over informed decision. So that decision, please, Monday, it has to be circulated to the various committees for us to look at it and come up with a decision for our press conference on Tuesday. Tuesday, we will inform the public on what we have done preliminarily, looking at the bill, and we'll also report it to plenary on the 6th, which will be Thursday, and an informed decision will be done by plenary to know what is the next step.
The House Committee Chair on Gender Equality, Child Development and Social Services, Representative Moiman Brice Mensah speaking. What folks, with the time half past the hour, if you're just joining us, a reminder, you're listening to King's Newsbund, the 45 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. Stories will follow in here this evening. Former House Speaker Councillor Funantit Kofa says he resigned as Speaker due to non-cooperation from President Joseph Boakai and the entire executive branch of the government. Founder of Free Liberia Movement and Universal Human Rights International describes U.S. government's non-immigrant visa validity extension as a polite insult to injury. Reverend Tolly Crowd accuses the U.S. and Western nations of deploying apartheid systems and systematic exclusion of black people. Solidarity and Trust for Annuity alleges officers of Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency of selling confiscated illegal substances. Away from Liberia, U.S. President Donald Trump tells military to prepare for action against Islamic militants in Nigeria. Tanzania President Samia Suluhu Hassan has been sworn in for the second term amid tight security following election marked by violent protests and rejected by the opposition as a sham. We take another short break. When we come back, we continue with more voices on the program. Thanks for rejoining. On this one, Unborn County Senator Prince Moy has defended government officials against what many described as meanness. Senator Moy claimed that the government is more focused on spending on developmental initiatives that will benefit the citizens rather than giving individuals handouts. He accused the WEA administration of looting state resources and spending loosely on loyalists.
In short, I'm saying it's not about being mean. Maybe when people disperse or give money randomly the way they got it, some of us know. Our central bank got empty. They took a loan from the central bank in the history of the central bank, in the very first time for a government to borrow 80-some more million from the central bank in our country. That was the first time. And that was the past government. So you borrow that kind of money from your reserve, from your central bank. Well, and people give 50 million all here. So what we're doing is to put the money in projects that will benefit everyone. So it's not because Moy is here, he was a campaign manager for the Unity Party. So I go and empty all the banks around here and take money from so and come here and say, I will give 50 million scholarship. I will give 100 million scholarship. That's not the way to run a government. And we said it in time past. And we stand by what we said. Running government means somebody living from here going to Grand Ile. We're all spending 1 week on the road. And when they have emergency. Somebody that's sick coming to Tabeta from Grand Ile, we're all dying on the highway in the ambulance. You're running a government. And going through that side and coming back, River says, coming back to Monrovia in 1 or 2 days' time. You're running a government, a mature government. It's for the system to run. That when you go to the bank, nobody should tell you system down because the money that there now, somebody finish playing the bank, and they don't have space to give back what you save in the bank. That's not the way to run government. When have you seen rural teachers standing to LBDR 2-3 days waiting for pay? We haven't seen it. That's running a government. When did you see people standing in line with mayonnaise jar or jerry can fighting for gasoline? When did gasoline go up to 1,000? No way. Even the rice that people thought that it was a monopolized commodity is now being regulated by the market forces.
He's Bon County Senator Prince Moy there speaking. United Party Chairman Reverend Luther Tappet on Sunday called for a fundamental shift in Liberia's political culture, urging leaders to abandon self-interest and embrace a renewed spirit of public service. Speaking to journalists at the church on the Roberts Field Highway, Reverend Tappet reflected on his participation in what he described as the African Union of Democracy, a gathering of representatives from 34 countries, including South Africa and Tunisia. According to the ruling United Party chairman, the conference was focused on strengthening democratic governance and accountability across Africa.
It's a very wonderful thing to have a great friend of Liberia for over 40 years. I remember as a young Christian, we used to watch his program on the ELBC television those days, and to see him visit Liberia is truly a blessing. So I'm happy to have him in our local church today to worship with us.
Were you impressed by his message, by having a good day?
Absolutely. He gave us the secrets of how we can overcome many burdens we face as human beings, of praying and listening to God's word. Because the world is very difficult place to live. Whether you are president or you are selling tomatoes in the market, you have your own problem. And many times we can't go through problem by ourselves. We need God's help, and that's what he's trying to portray.
How does his current visit impact the Christian community?
Well, it's a reminder that Liberia is now back on the right trajectory, because these are men who were supporting the Liberian moral fabric prior to the Civil War. To see them back is a clear indication that like the country is back on the right path, and I'm happy that he can come and share this moment of worship with my church, the Hilltop Beloved Fire Church.
So how does it benefit the Hilltop Beloved Fire Church? How does it benefit
your own church?
Oh, well, besides the fact that a lot of people here know him, I said most of you were born after the war, but those of us who were before the war, we benefited as young people, as I said. Many times when you go for youth camp those days, they would say, go and listen to Kev Heshe. And he was always on point, guiding us into building our moral compass. And that's why we are today, serving the country. So it's been a blessing.
So
He's Unity Party Chairman, Reverend Luther Tapeda speaking. Liberia DJs Association President Adolphus Morris, popularly known as DJ Mo, has expressed strong disappointment in Representative Bernard Blue Benson, Emmanuel Dan, and several others for what he described as abandonment of DJs across the country. According to Morris, it is frustrating to see Representatives Emmanuel Dan and Bernard Benson, affectionately called DJ Blue, to refuse to help upcoming DJs improve their talents despite their previous affiliation with the association before being elected as lawmakers.
3 weeks ago, I sent a letter. I wrote a blue office on 4 different occasions, no avail. The day we were starting the workshop, he was ready with us. I called Martin. He said, oh, call the representative. I called Blue. He didn't answer me. He didn't pick my call. I sent him text. He didn't respond. So I just saying this, so when I get a notion that will perform the dancer, people just feel like Blue Men and Imaya Daniel because they are involved and they pay money for what to do the workshop. It's not like that. They are money not in here. They are not supporting the association. We can't keep calling their name on our activity or we support them, giving moral assistance and giving financial assistance. You see, D not get money with D persons here.
Pay a lot.
To impart knowledge into you. That's what we want them to be doing. But all of a sudden, they are not doing it. And let me tell you this, when we started the teacher competition, they found out the last time I wrote Blue. I went to Blue House on the eve of the competition. I went to Blue House, Sarah Osa. At Sarah Osa, the people announcing the Blue and Lisa. Blue took long, I went at 8 o'clock, I left and let 3 o'clock. When you came and said, oh my man, I saw you go. Like, 5 minutes straight from Blue, I saw you go. So, when we started in the car, he said, well, where you go and say, I go to passion. So, all the association having a DJ competition, the founder and school commission. We wrote you and you received the letter, no response. So, I think the founder, what's your intake? The winner will carry the prize. The second winner, the prize. And now we left with $350 US to go and book the school commission. We got 3 things on your plate. Choose one. You say, okay, I get $160 and my heart is heavy giving you my money. He said, why you say so? He said, because the time you were contesting in District 17, we go as an association to pledge our support to him. He said, oh, yeah, we support the representative. I said, Blue. The thing say, I want you to say it again. He said, but what I tell you, my heart is heavy. You're not political money here, so you can't eat political money because you don't pledge your support money.
He's Liberia DJs Association President Adolphus Morris. They're speaking. ECOWAS Ambassador to Liberia, Josephine Nkrumah, is encouraging custom officers of member states of the West African Regional Organization to implement the protocol giving free trade access to traders in the region. She said in order to transform the West African region, there is a need for custom officers of member states to accept records of inspection conducted by each other so as to reduce the time and funds in moving goods in the region.
Africa's transformation, and indeed ECOWAS's transformation, lies in our economic transformation. And so instruments such as SIGMAT, instruments like the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, and related protocols are key instruments that can drive this agenda. However, it's important that no matter how efficient these protocols or these instruments are, it is its efficient implementation that makes it a success. So SIGMAT on its own is a very laudable instrument that can actually bring change, that can influence trade positively, that can drive trade integration, that can build access to markets, that it rests upon us as member states to ensure that we implement this cross-border women traders and the challenges and impediments that they face in spite of what we consider our free protocols for movement, for trade. It behoves all of us sitting here and as key stakeholders, customs, to ensure that we fully appreciate, understand, and implement these trade protocols so that trade can thrive in our West African sub-region. Many years after the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, frankly, there are many traders, cross-border traders, who are not benefiting from it. When you speak to women traders in particular, for some of them, their trade, the impediments to their trade diminishes their trade capital, and its ripple effect is real. Women who cannot trade cannot support men to put food on the table for their children. They cannot support their children to go to school. They cannot afford good education, good health care.
She's ECOWAS ambassador to Liberia, Josephine Nkrumah, they're speaking. And away from Liberia, U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered the military to prepare for action in Nigeria to tackle Islamic militant groups, accusing the government of failing to protect Christians. Trump did not say which killings he was referring to, but claims of a genocide against Nigeria's Christians have been circulating in recent weeks and months in some right-wing U.S. circles. Groups monitoring violence say there is evidence, or there's no evidence to suggest that the Christians have been killed more than Muslims in Nigeria, which is roughly even divided between followers of the two religions. An advisor to Nigeria's president told the BBC that any military action against the jihadist groups should be carried out together. Tanzania President Samia Suluhu Hassan is being sworn in shortly for a second term following an election marred by violent protests and rejected by the opposition as a sham. The inauguration ceremony is being held at a military parade grounds in the capital, Dodoma, in an event closed to the public but broadcast live by the state-run TBC. Samia was declared the winner of Saturday's election with 98% of the vote. She faced little opposition with key rival candidates either imprisoned or banned from running. International observers have raised concerns about the transparency of the election and its violent aftermath, with hundreds of people reportedly killed and injured. On that note, I would like to go home this evening on this edition of the program King's News, Burn a 45-minute news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. But just before we go home this evening, let's remind you of stories we've been following. Former House Speaker Councillor Funati Kofa says he resigned as Speaker due to non-cooperation from President Joseph Boakai and the entire executive branch. Founder of Free Liberia Movement and Universal Human Rights International describes U.S. government's non-immigrant visa validated extension as a polite insult to injury Reverend Tully Crowd accuses the U.S. and Western nations of deploying apartheid systems and systematic exclusion of black people. Solidarity and Trust for Onude alleges officers of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency of selling confiscated illegal substances. Away from Liberia, U.S. President Donald Trump tells military to prepare for action against Islamic militants in Nigeria. Tanzania President Samia Suluhu Hassan has been sworn in for the second term amid tight security following an election marked by violent protests and rejected by the opposition as a sham. These are stories we follow here this evening of King's Newsroom. Sam Andrews was here with the news bulletin while Sherman Dios sat at controls and coordinated the sounds. I would like to say many thanks to all of our reporters, correspondents, news editors who helped in making this package. Our sources, my name is Newton Tukwa. Thanks for listening and watching. Good evening.